Have you ever had an earworm? It's when you have the song, or maybe just a single verse of a song, just stuck in your head on loop, and you just can't stop thinking about it. It can be maddening. One popular way to stop an earworm is to listen to the song in full. And that's because some people think it's caused when the brain can't quite remember something and it's trying really hard to figure it out. And by listening to the song in full, you can help the brain overcome whatever speed bump it's encountered, and the earworm can finally go away. Well, have you ever had this happen with a book? Because ever since I read Old Man's War by John Scalzi, I can't get this book out of my head. Welcome to Reading Crossbow. I'm Rob, and today I'm excited to talk to you about the novel Old Man's War. You see, a while back we read Starter Villain by John Scalzi, and despite it having a lot going for it, it wasn't exactly our favorite book of the year. After that episode came out, I was chatting with a friend who suggested that perhaps I'd read the wrong Scalzi novel. They said that I should really try out his first novel, Old Man's War. Knowing it was a bit too soon to ask Lena to dive back into Scalzi, I decided I'd just read it for myself and made no plans to review it on this show. Overall, I did find it to be a fun science fiction novel that I really do encourage you to read for yourself. In a lot of ways, it felt like a pulpy beer and pretzels version of Starship Troopers. I enjoyed it and recommend it as a fun sci-fi book. Now, I'm giving you the recommendation now at the start of this video because from here on out, we're definitely going to have to move into spoiler territory because that's the only way I'm going to be able to explain how this book has lodged itself rent-free in my gray matter for months now. So if you don't want spoilers, just stop here, go read the book, and come back to this video when you're done. So the book kicks off in the near future when life on Earth is pretty much identical to the way it is today. The same nations, politics, and for the most part, the same technology as when this book was written. The chief difference between that world and our world is that there's now an organization called the Colonial Defense Force, or CDF, which is colonizing other planets. Now, to protect Earth from space pathogens and other threats, there's pretty much zero communication between the colonies and Earth. People from the poorer regions of Earth are able to immigrate out to the colonies, whereas citizens of the wealthy nations of the world are able to enlist in a term of service with the CDF military to gain access to be able to start a new life out in the colonies. The strange part about this volunteer army recruitment is that they only recruit senior citizens. When you're 65, you can sign up to enlist when you're 75. They do a physical on you and tell you, come back in 10 years. At the age of 75, if you're still willing, you are sent on a trip up a space elevator. No one on Earth really knows what happens to you after you leave the Earth and join the CDF, or if you were to immigrate out to the colonies. Even the recruiters are just as ignorant as anyone else on Earth because they're on Earth. The novel Old Man's War follows new recruit John Perry, a retired newspaper cartoonist, as he enlists with the CDF. After leaving the Earth, John is confronted by this green, muscle-bound version of himself. John learns that 10 years ago, during his physical, the CDF harvested some of John's DNA and used that DNA and some advanced science to create John a brand new body, perfectly engineered as a warrior. And then a little bippity boppity boop, and John is now in the body of Drax the Destroyer and ready for a space war. There's some initial R&R for all the recruits to get used to their bodies, and then John and his fellow recruits are sent to boot camp and then out to the battlefront. Most of the rest of the novel is military fiction, covering the battles that John has to fight in ever stranger new worlds. Once again, I enjoyed this book, and after reading it, expected to just move on with my life. But this book has just been niggling away at me in the back of my mind with all these unresolved questions that sometimes I didn't even realize I had. For example, this book features perhaps the most insane FTL in science fiction. The CDF effectively just Rick and Morty's across the cosmos. Instead of traveling faster than light, they just jump to a different reality in which the universe is pretty much the same, but they're now in a new location from where they were when they left. Imagine if Dr. McCoy had such a problem with the transporters, because he would ask, "Is it really even you?" Well, in this book, the CDF is hopping between universes, just trusting that a different reality will do the same for them. So imagine, a colony is under attack, so they send a drone out requesting assistance. The drone jumps to a different reality to change locations in the universe. That new universe responds and sends a ship. That ship slips into a third universe, goes to the planet where the distress call was sent from, and battle ensues. And since almost all these universes are effectively the same, let's just assume that all of the versions of this universe get the same amount of assistance. This bonkers form of space travel is intended to solve the "you can't travel faster than light" speed limit by inventing something more insane. Is it possible realities that they're slipping into, and eventually the wave function will collapse it back down into a single reality? Well, seemingly no, at least according to the characters in the novel. They just accept this is how it is. Now, since reading this book, I've learned that in some of the later novels, the characters do learn that there is a misunderstanding about what's happening, and this FTL does get explained better later. But this is how they understand it in this book, and somehow they're just freaking cool with this kind of insane FTL. But actually, though, when you think about it, it kind of does work. We're not talking about radically different realities like the TV show Sliders or Rick and Morty. These are very close realities where only a few atoms are different. So you really can't tell the difference. But still, the book says that once you exit a reality, you're never going to go back. And that's just where it starts to get weird. Because John and his boot camp friends keep in touch after they get separated out to their different ships. They send messages and videos to each other over the years. But once again, once they all jumped for that first time, it's unlikely they're even talking to the same individuals who went to boot camp together. Instead, they're chatting with variants. Because the universes are so close, it just doesn't matter. But I do feel like Dr. McCoy would be throwing a fit. Now, how about this? In these books, if a clone is created, but the person dies before they can enlist, or maybe they change their mind, the CDF doesn't just toss out the clone. Instead, they speed run its mental development, and that's where the special forces come from, who've been nicknamed the Ghost Brigades. These special forces, technically toddlers in an Olympian's body, will never be allowed to retire out to the colonies. These child soldiers are kept isolated from normal soldiers, so they don't even really know what they're missing. This kind of comes to a head in the novel because John is a widower, and somehow he recognizes the She-Hulk variant of his dead wife and, wants to rekindle that romance. Yes, she is based on his wife. Honestly, probably a different wife from a different universe. And each time they run into each other, they are again and again from different reality variants from the last time they ran into each other. Sure, these characters are able to get over the 75-year-old in a young body romancing the uplifted child soldier, but each time they see each other, it's not like they're the same person they encountered before, just a very close variant of that person. This is just how they understand things, and everyone seems to be just cool with it. So, these genetically engineered super soldiers have a built-in AI implant. Most of the recruits give their AI an affectionate names like asshole or something similar to that. It's kind of a running joke of the book. And it's this AI which also is used to uplift the bodies of the deceased recruits and speedily educate the Ghost Brigade so that they can be combat ready in no time. But this does beg the question, do they only allow the bodies of dead recruits to become sentient? Or do they let all of the bodies become sentient and just overwrite the minds of the recruits that actually do enlist? I mean, honestly, at this point, my money's on the latter because I don't think the CDF really has a problem with the ethics of erasing that mind. How about Earth? Where the recruits and the colonists come from. None of this tech, such as the genetic engineering, the AI, or any of the other advanced technology, makes its way back to Earth. The book makes it clear that the CDF has cures to diseases and other insane life extension means which they will not share with humanity back on Earth. Earth has become this time capsule recruiting ground for the CDF, kept in the dark on purpose. They only recruit colonists from the poor nations, since they are more likely to be adept and grateful for the opportunity to live on these hostile new planets. Whereas people from the rich nations must live their full lives and then throw their new lives away in a meat grinder war just to get the chance to live in the colonies. A chance that almost none of them are going to live to see. Based on the tech of the CDF, Earth should probably be like a post-scarcity society where there isn't rich and poor nations. They're actually being kept backwards and in the dark, almost like this was Warhammer 40K or Dune. It's a recruiting world, blissfully ignorant of the greater universe, the galactic conflict, or any of the advanced tech that might be used to improve their lives. The selective opportunity of enlistment or immigration, honestly, is a lie. Now, I think all of this might explain why I thought this beer and pretzel sci-fi novel has just lodged itself in my mind and just keeps nudging at the edges of my consciousness. Because John Scalzi is a smart guy, and I think there are probably answers to my questions. So there's 7 novels in this series, with the latest one actually coming out next week in September 2025. And I think, like an earworm, the best fix for what's going on in my mind is going to have to be listen to the full song. Or in this case, I think I'm going to have to read this whole series because I need some answers. Thank you for watching Reading Crossbow. We really appreciate you watching, liking, and subscribing. Lena should be back next week, and we will be reviewing her book choice for September. And let's just say this is definitely one of her books and not one of mine.